1938. Five-time Grammy winner Shania Twain rose to fame in the 90s with her hit 1997 album, Come On Over. Straddling country and pop, it is the best-selling album of all time by a female musician in any genre. After selling more than 75 million albums worldwide, she took a break to raise her son Asia. But that break was cut short when the end of her marriage and subsequent brand new love grabbed tabloid headlines. She writes about it all in her new book, From This Moment On. Shania Twain, good morning to you.
Good morning.
When I first saw this book, I thought, you know, this is a very private lady. I've never read a lot about you where you have opened up about yourself. You really do in this book, and you describe it as a sort of emotional cleansing for you. Why the change of heart?
I would say it's a periodic change of heart in a sense. It's a phase that I'm going through. It's a period of my life where I need to focus on that. I wouldn't say that I'll be an open book for the rest of my life and career, but it's something I feel I need to face head on at the moment.
Why do you say that?
Because I am genuinely a very private person, and I've probably been just too closed, and up to now probably more closed than what was good for me. And I also feel that a lot of that was just a bit of fear and anxiety, maybe worried about what people would think all the time, get criticized for it. And now I'm at a point where I feel sharing and giving testimony to a lot of things I've experienced in life will do more good for others than it would do keeping it to myself. And it also forces me a little bit out of my comfort zone, which is necessary for all part of this healing. You know, do one thing scary every day kind of thing.
Yeah, and your life became very public fodder. It really did, at least for the tabloids. And you write about this around basically the last 50 pages are about what happened to your marriage. And you're very upfront about it. You talk about, I guess this was your best friend, Marianne, and you say that allegedly she had an affair with your husband. That infidelity led to divorce. And you write something that I think a lot of women are going to relate to, so if I can read this back to you. My friend was now a backstabber. My husband was now my backstabber's new love interest. They were open about their intolerance of my grief and impatient for me to get over it already, but change wasn't instant or final. Like any death, it would take time.
Right. So, you know, when that story hit the tabloids, it already was out. So that was embarrassing for me. And I thought, wow, you know, I've been thrown into the public eye with something that I'm very uncomfortable with. But I think it's probably time that I maybe just face a lot of things that are uncomfortable head on and get them over with. And that just makes it easier to move on many, many levels. So since it was already wide open, I thought, you know what, I think it's time to just really address things, get it over with, and sort of come clean in certain ways.
Well, so how did you pick up the pieces after that? Because you did describe it as a death, and it really was in many ways.
Well, very slowly. I started writing the autobiography. First of all, I started writing and obsessing about the breakup of my marriage. I just couldn't quite get past it. And when grief carries on too long, you know, into your second year, for example, you have to start looking a little bit at getting help. And it's very hard for me to reach out to others. I have to learn how to do that better. But I did turn to books and learning and doing some research about grief and the death of love and life and all those sorts of things. And I started to realize that I was obsessing and I was stuck. And so I thought, okay, writing is something I do naturally as a form of expression, but I need to start writing about something else and force myself into another subject. So why not start at the beginning of my life and write from there? And it did put what I was obsessing about, the end of my marriage, into perspective as a portion of my life and not something that represented my entire life. So it was good. It was good to spread it all out and put it all into perspective in writing.
And there was a happy ending in this, in that you did fall in love with, ironically enough, your ex-best friend's ex-husband, Fred, and you are now married and happily married, which is a big plus. I think people reading this book are going to discover so many things about you that they never knew. You had a difficult childhood growing up in rural Canada. Your family was poor. You lived in homes where no heat a lot of the time, very little food, and your mom was abused by your stepdad. Sometimes she'd have bruises and you'd have to apply the makeup to cover them. What does that kind of a of a lifetime experience due to a little girl.
It makes you feel very insecure. It was a very unstable environment, off and on, and that's the other thing. It was off and on. You never know when it would. You know, you never really knew what to expect next. Could go through a good phase and then a bad phase. I think it just keeps you on your toes and worried. I would say more than anything about, you know, what's around the next corner. And
do you ever sit back
and fragile?
Yeah, do you ever sit back and, I mean, unfortunately we're running out of time. I'm
Yeah.
very frustrated. There's 400 pages and that means there's a lot of information. And wonder, how did you go from that to becoming the superstar that you are?
You know what, that's why I had to write a book, because even myself, I felt I needed to unravel this life of so many extremes. How did it get all packed into one 45-year-old life?
You haven't figured that out?
Well, I had to walk through it to figure it out, really. It's been a lot.
Are we going to hear you sing again?
I hope so. You will. You will hear me sing again. Absolutely. I want to sing again. I love to sing, and I've really got to get a grip on that, because progressively throughout my whole life, all of these anxieties and fears and uncertainties have certainly affected the muscles around my larynx. It's quite technical, but to make a long story short, it's really interrupted my vocal power and expression. So I'm getting a grip on that through this whole process. In fact, writing the books has been extremely helpful. The television series has been very, very helpful as well. Walking through it all again. The self-therapy. Yeah, throwing myself into, you know, healing and self-motivation.
Getting your voice back in every way.
Getting my voice back in every
Shania
way,
Twain,
yeah.
thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us this morning. The book is From This Moment On. And Shania will be back to talk to Kathy.